Time travel is a phenomenon that excites all of us, because you never know where the infinite possibilities of traveling through a time gap will take you, who you meet, and what scenes you witness. What an interesting statue. These time gap ideas seem to only appear in fantasy movies, where people unleash their creativity, not in real life. But there is the man who made the impossible possible. Bielek has traveled through both space and time. After his return, he shocked the world by describing a very different world and revealing shocking prophecies that would happen in the future. These things completely break all human understanding. So what did Bielek end up witnessing? Before Bielek, was there anyone who could jump into the future? And does God allow these miracles to happen? All will be revealed in the following video. The man who traveled through time and space. This man named Bielek lived in America, was born in 1927 and died in 2011. According to Bielek, he not only traveled to the future, but also found a way to return to the present to tell the stories he had told, experience, as well as the future of humanity. Bielek said he spent 6 weeks in 2137 and 2 years in 2749 to 2750. The stories he tells are truly fascinating, especially stories related to the New World Order and global climate change, which have attracted the attention of many people because they are directly related to the present and the future of the world. Among the stories that Bielek told, the Montauk Project was the most fascinating and mysterious. The Montauk Project is a conspiracy theory that the U.S. government carries out a series of secret projects. Operated at Camp Hero or Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk, Long Island, to develop psychological warfare techniques and paranormal research, including time travel. Bielek claimed he was part of the so-called Philadelphia Experiment, a series of top-secret tests carried out by the U.S. Navy during the Second World War to test Albert Einstein's unified field theory. According to popular legend, in 1943, the U.S. Navy undertook secret experiments based out of the port of Philadelphia. These experiments were designed to put Einstein's unified field theory to practical use by making a naval ship invisible. While conspiracy theorists debate the existence of the Philadelphia experiment, one alleged survivor of the scientific outing, Bielek, maintained that the Navy's purpose was entirely different. According to Bielek, the true purpose of the Philadelphia experiment wasn't invisibility, it was time travel. According to Bielek, in 1980, when time control programs were operating, he directly participated in some time travel experiments. He and Duncan himself went to Mars many times. Later, Bielek also recalled some other time travel with his teammates when he went to a research station in 100,000 BC, along with several other planets, to retrieve boxes containing light energy. Light and darkness, he even reached the year 6037. In 1990, he claimed that he had spent time in 2 separate periods in the future, before returning to the present day to tell his story. Known as a strange child, in his own words, he claimed his first memory was when he was just 9 months old. At a family Christmas party, he found he was able to fully understand the adults talking in the room around him. When he was just 16, he joined the U.S. Navy to help fight the Nazis. It was at this time in 1943, serving as a lowly naval officer aboard the USS Eldridge, that Bielek claimed he traveled in time. The Eldridge was supposedly harboring the Philadelphia experiment. On August 13, 1943, Bielek and his brother Duncan jumped off the ship to escape a strange light and landed in the year 2137. In a video lecture he filmed in the 1990s, Bielek said, "When Duncan and I jumped overboard, off the ship the Eldridge, in hyperspace, we didn't know what was happening and where we were going, or if we were going anywhere, except, of course, into the water. We expected to hit the water in the bay and swim ashore. But no water. We never hit it. We kept falling and falling for quite a period of time." What he revealed shocked the whole world. He and Duncan went to a futuristic hospital for 6 weeks to treat radiation injuries using vibrations and light. The first sign that something was wrong was that the room had a wall-mounted color TV, very unusual for 1943. They were told by hospital staff that they had suffered severe radiation burns, not from a nuclear attack, but from the radiation found in deep space. Here, he saw many surprises. It seemed like another strange world was happening before his eyes. Bielek claimed they were told that there were very few surviving cities around the world, and no more national boundaries or government. Much of California was now underwater, stretching to the San Andreas fault line, and there was not much left of Los Angeles as a functioning city. Many major U.S. cities such as Chicago, New Orleans, and San Diego were gone, while rising sea levels had seen the Great Lakes become one giant body of water, and the Mississippi River widened, becoming 30 miles wide at its narrowest point. He also said in Europe, most of England had gone, while the Scottish Highlands and some of Ireland remained. Much of Europe was underwater, even parts of Switzerland. Most dramatically, he was told that the world's population had plummeted to just 300 million. Shockingly. He said he learned that most of the world's governments had crumbled away by the year 2025. A nuclear World War III killed millions, but, he claimed, far more were wiped out by changes to the earth. Bielek said that one day he was walking around the hospital grounds when he was transported even further ahead in time, to around the years 2749 and 2750. By this point, society had drastically changed. Many cities had gone, but floating cities now existed, thanks to anti-gravity techniques, some of them stretching more than 2.5 miles into the sky. The countries of the world had all gone, and instead, most people lived in a series of self-governing city-states. Bielek said that these city-states had no elected or appointed government. Instead, each city was run by an intelligent computer with synthetic intelligence, called the Synthetic Intelligence Computer System, that worked telepathically. It was illegal for humans to leave certain zones, and the governing supercomputers had the ability to terminate offending individuals there and then. Bielek also said that there were no wars in 2749, although there had been a great conflagration between the Russians and the Chinese, as well as between the United States and Europe. But in 2749, according to Bielek, wars were practically impossible. There were no military or soldiers, navy or air force, so any conflict between countries was irrelevant. In fact, there was no government, as a computer system of synthetic intelligence, built in the 26th century, executed everything and made everything work correctly. This system, moreover, had eliminated physical labor forever. Bielek claimed he had spoken to the computer and asked it how such a system of governance came to be. He was told that the project had started a couple of centuries earlier, around the year 2600. No militaries existed, as technology had made conflict practically impossible, and everything was now free. He said he stayed there for 2 years before being sent back to 2137 to pick up his brother. Eventually, Bielek claimed he was sent back in time, but not to the period he had come from. Instead, he appeared on August 12, 1983, just after 2 a.m. There, he claimed he met Dr. John von Neumann, the Hungarian-American mathematician. This is despite the fact Dr. von Neumann died in 1957, some quarter of a century earlier. He convinced the two brothers to return to their original time and stop the Philadelphia experiment from ever happening. After his time in the Navy, Bielek said he was recruited by military contractors who revealed that the U.S. military was secretly adapting alien technology and forwarding research on psychic operations. The mystery of the Montauk Project. Might you know the hit supernatural thriller Stranger Things? From mind control to monsters, time travel to alternate dimensions, some things are purely the purview of science fiction. In fact, all of these and more are the subject of this hit movie. But what if they were real? Because that very show was inspired by a story that claims them as fact. It's a tale of secret government experiments conducted on stolen children, of vast ships bending the rules of time and space, and of the things usually found in nightmares. and it was called the Montauk Project. This is also the project that took Bielek to travel to the future and witness many incredible events. The legends surrounding Montauk came to popular attention in 1992 with the publication of the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. This was the first of a series of books on the subject written by Preston Nichols and Peter Moon, which claimed to expose the secrets behind the Montauk experiments. They introduced the public to an intricate narrative of government cover-ups and other worldly technologies. To understand these ideas, however, it's essential to first examine the connection with another infamous mystery known as the Philadelphia experiment. Allegedly conducted in 1943, this was said to be an attempt by the U.S. Navy to render the destroyer escort USS Eldridge invisible to enemy devices. The story goes that the test was partially successful, causing the ship to become invisible or cloaked, but with disastrous consequences for the crew on board, some of whom were rumored to have suffered from severe physical and mental ailments as a result of the experiment. Some were even said to have materialized fused to the ship. Proponents of the Montauk Project theory assert that the research into invisibility and manipulation of space-time didn't end with the Philadelphia experiment, but instead laid the groundwork for the more advanced experiments that would take place at Montauk. According to these allegations, the Montauk Project picked up where the Philadelphia experiment left off, pushing the boundaries of science and ethics. These supposed events were fictionalized in the 1984 film The Philadelphia Experiment. At the heart of the Montauk Project are startling allegations that have captured the imagination of many. These assert that between 1971 and 1983, a series of experiments were carried out on kidnapped teenagers at Montauk Air Force Station, now Camp Hero, in Long Island, New York. These took a number of forms. One of the most riveting claims about the Montauk Project is the Montauk Time experiments. Witnesses and supposed participants have described complex devices capable of affecting time itself. The most notorious of these devices was the Montauk chair, psychic enhancement equipment alleged to harness the power of psychics to influence or view events across time and space. There are tales of individuals being sent through time portals, experiencing different time periods firsthand, and even interacting with their past or future selves. Another significant aspect of the Montauk experiments revolves around psychological and mind control. The project is said to have explored the depths of psychological warfare, developing techniques for brainwashing, remote influencing, and the programming of the human mind. These experiments allegedly included the use of electromagnetic waves to transmit thoughts directly into people's minds, inducing hallucinations or controlling their thoughts and actions without their knowledge. The claims about interdimensional research and extraterrestrial contact extend beyond our conventional understanding of time and psychology, delving into the realms of interdimensional research and extraterrestrial contact. Some stories recount the creation of portals to other worlds or dimensions, allowing beings from other realities to enter our own. There are also accounts of meetings with extraterrestrial entities, collaboration on advanced technologies, and the exchange of knowledge between humans and aliens. Some people are skeptical about the authenticity of this project. Meanwhile, others argue that the U.S. government has gone to great lengths to cover up the project's existence and its outcomes. They also point to the fact that that same government has admitted to conducting secret mind control experiments in the past. Along with that, there are also two different opinions about Bielek's sharing about his time travel. But no matter what, he has provided us with a multi-dimensional perspective on a future world. The Montauk Project remains a fascinating subject of speculation and debate. While the tales of time travel, mind control, and interdimensional portals captivate the imagination, the lack of verifiable evidence and the presence of logical inconsistencies call into question the validity of these claims. Nevertheless, the story of Montauk continues to hold a certain allure, reflecting broader themes of government secrecy, the quest for knowledge, and the human fascination with the unknown. Is God know the future? Time travel to the future with the purpose of knowing the future. I don't know about you, but for the first time, I heard that the person who can predict the future is our God. He predicted that there would come a time when people would be immersed in sin and forget who their God is. God also foretold that Peter would deny knowing Jesus 3 times. In a fallen world filled with death, suffering, and natural disasters, many people live in pain, uncertainty, and hopelessness. People naturally ask questions. Can I have hope in a world that seems so uncertain? Will a day ever come when death and suffering will be no more? Suffering and death happen because of Adam's sin, but God's word gives us hope and certainty that one day the Lord will swallow up death forever and wipe away all tears because of what Christ achieved for us on the cross. Our certainty about the future doesn't come out of thin air. It is based upon the fact that God not only knows what will take place in the future, but has revealed the key events to us so that we might have confident hope. Sadly, in recent years, some leading pastors and theologians have challenged the idea that God has exhaustive knowledge of future events. Believers need to recognize the preciousness of this biblical truth about God's omniscience. God explicitly claims accurate knowledge of future events as one of the greatest proofs that He is the one and only true God. It shows us not only that we can trust Him, but also that He is in total control of all things. This truth gives Christians security in God's promises about a future filled with certainty and hope. Perhaps even more important than a secure promise for Christians to hold on to, it provides us with a compelling message to proclaim to those who have no hope. When you read Isaiah 41, these verses reveal many things about God's nature and His purposes in the world, not just about the future, but about the past. It's not just that He knows what has happened and will happen, but He knows everything about why it happened. Before challenging the gods of the nations about their knowledge of the future, God first asks them to tell us the former things, that we may know their outcome. Historians can often tell you what happened in the past, but very often they cannot tell you why it happened. It is one thing to know the facts, it is another to know the why of the facts. Only the true God can tell you what happened in the past as well as why. God then challenges the gods of the nations to declare to us the things to come. The futility of idols is that they cannot tell the future or the past as only the true God can. Isaiah prophesied that God would use Cyrus, the future king of Persia, to help regather the faithful remnant of Israel back to the land a century and a half before that regathering happened. He identified that future king by name. Isaiah could prophesy this because he served the true God, who has exhaustive foreknowledge of future events. For the false gods, however, this was impossible. God predicted the future so that when it came about, His people would acknowledge that He, unlike the gods of the nations, is the one true God. God uses prophecy again in the New Testament for this same reason, to prove that He is who He says He is. In John 13:19, Jesus prophesied His betrayal to His disciples. I am telling you this now before it takes place, that when it does take place you may believe that I am He. He did this so that when it took place it would help them know that He is God. The purpose of predictive prophecy is to show that God is guiding human history to accomplish His purposes. So, when people deny God's exhaustive knowledge of future events, they turn God into a deity who is no better than the gods of the other nations. Only the true God can declare the beginning from the end and accomplish all His purposes. Yet if God does not have exhaustive knowledge of the future, then how could He know the end from the beginning? Because God is all-knowing, we can rest secure in His promise of a new heaven and new earth where there will be no more death and suffering. But how can those who reject God's knowledge of the future be certain of these things? Scripture clearly presents God as knowing the future exhaustively. He knows it because He created and oversees all things according to His own wise plan. In a world filled with death, suffering, uncertainty, and hopelessness, We can be certain of a secure future because the character of the God of creation guarantees it, and his knowledge of future events means nothing will ever catch him by surprise. But there is a question. If Jesus is God, he knows the future. Why did he not know when he would return? The key to understanding Jesus' seeming lack of knowledge in this matter lies in the nature of the incarnation. When the Son of God became a man, he remained fully God, but he also took on a true human nature. Jesus retained all the attributes of divinity, yet, as a man, he voluntarily restricted their use. When Christ entered our world, he laid aside the privileges that had been his in heaven. Rather than stay on his throne in heaven, Jesus made himself nothing. When he came to earth, he gave up his divine privileges, he veiled his glory, and he chose to occupy the position of a servant. There were times when Jesus publicly manifested his divine knowledge and power on earth. On those occasions, Jesus' demonstrations of his divinity were directed by the Father. On other occasions, he had no such directive from the Father, and he kept his glory veiled. On all occasions, Jesus obeyed the Father's will. I always do what pleases him. So, when Jesus said he did not know when he would return, he was actively humbling himself and taking the form of a servant. Since no other mortal knows the time of Jesus' return, that information is the Father's alone. Jesus voluntarily restricted his knowledge on that point. It was part of Jesus' submission to the Father and his mission to live a human life. Some things Jesus apparently chose to give up the rights to be privy to during his earthly ministry. The knowledge of when he would return was one of those things. Jesus, now exalted in heaven, surely knows all, including the timing of his second coming. Time travel. Is it possible? Time travel topics always attract great attention from the public. The ability to travel through time, whether it is to fix a mistake in the past or gain insight into the future, has long been embraced by science fiction and debated by theoretical physicists. While the debate continues over whether traveling into the past is possible, physicists have determined that traveling to the future most certainly is. Real-life time travel occurs through time dilation, a property of Einstein's special relativity. Einstein was the first to realize that time is not constant, as previously believed, but instead slows down as you move faster through space. As part of his theory, Einstein re-envisioned space itself. He coined the phrase space-time, fusing the 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time into a single term. Instead of treating space as a flat and rigid place that holds all the objects in the universe, Einstein thought of it as curved and malleable, able to form gravitational dips around masses that pull other objects in, just as a bowling ball placed in the center of a trampoline would cause any smaller object placed on the trampoline to slide towards the center. The closer an object gets to the center of the dip, the faster it accelerates. The center of the Earth's gravitational dip is located at the Earth's core, where gravitational acceleration is strongest. According to Einstein's theory, because time moves more slowly as you move faster through space, the closer an object is to the center of the Earth, the slower time moves for that object. So, is time travel possible? Short answer is yes, and you're doing it right now, hurtling into the future at the impressive rate of 1 second per second. You're pretty much always moving through time at the same speed, whether you're watching paint dry or wishing you had more hours to visit with a friend from out of town. But this isn't the kind of time travel that's captivated countless science fiction writers or spurred a genre so extensive that there are lists over 400 titles in the category Movies About Time Travel. In franchises like Doctor Who, Star Trek, and Back to the Future characters climb into some wild vehicle to blast into the past or spin into the future. Once the characters have traveled through time, They grapple with what happens if you change the past or present based on information from the future, which is where time travel stories intersect with the idea of parallel universes or alternate timelines. Although many people are fascinated by the idea of changing the past or seeing the future before it's due, no person has ever demonstrated the kind of back-and-forth time travel seen in science fiction or proposed a method of sending a person through significant periods of time that wouldn't destroy them on the way. And, as physicist Stephen Hawking pointed out in his book, Black Holes and Baby Universes, the best evidence we have that time travel is not possible and never will be is that we have not been invaded by hordes of tourists from the future. Science does support some amount of time bending, though. For example, physicist Albert Einstein's theory of special relativity proposes that time is an illusion that moves relative to an observer. An observer traveling near the speed of light will experience time, with all its after-effects like boredom, aging, and much more slowly than an observer at rest. That's why astronaut Scott Kelly aged ever so slightly less over the course of a year in orbit than his twin brother who stayed here on Earth. There are other scientific theories about time travel, including some weird physics that arise around wormholes, black holes, and string theory. For the most part, though, time travel remains the domain of an ever-growing array of science fiction books, movies, television shows, comics, video games, and more.